Welcome to this mini episode of What's the Point? In this study, we will be examining the impact of data center load growth on the residential electricity price in Virginia. This study is based on the monthly data from January 2015 to April 2026. The context for the study is the two parallel narratives that have been doing the rounds in the recent months. One that states that the data centers are responsible for the rise in the residential electricity prices, and another that says otherwise. A lot of these analyses on which the narratives are based are cross-sectional analysis, where the granularity of the policy nuance can get lost. Hence, the focus of the study is only on Virginia, with Alabama as the comparator state. The author of this study is Dr. Srikanth Venkataraman, one of the co-hosts of What's the Point? We chose Alabama as a comparator state to provide a meaningful benchmark. Its regulatory environment and electricity market characteristics offer a useful contrast to Virginia. Firstly, there is negligible data center presence in Alabama, unlike Virginia. Importantly, Alabama does not have an exposure to wholesale price volatility, as they are not part of any ISO while Virginia is part of the PJM. Alabama also does not have any mandated policies or mechanisms in place for the growth of renewable energy, such as the Renewable Portfolio Standards and the Virginia Clean Economy Act. These critical differences, along with a few others, positions Alabama well as a comparator state. Let us now look at the Virginia model. The dependent variable is the CPI-adjusted residential electricity prices. The key explanatory variables are the data center load growth, renewable energy generation, capital expenditure on transmission and investment, city gate price of natural gas, the weather variables, that is, the cooling degree days and the heating degree days. The term residual refers to the non-fuel-related factors' impact on the locational marginal price, while the fuel-related impact on the electricity price is captured by the city gate price. The interaction term refers to the multiplicative effect of data center load growth and the city gate price of natural gas. It is worth reminding that there was a freeze on the residential rate hikes from 2015 to 2020, but that freeze was lifted by the Grid Transformation and Security Act in July 2018. This structural break, caused by the lifting of the freeze, is captured by the variable SCC dummy, which is referred to as the post-GTSA variable in the regression output. There are a few methodological points that merit mentioning as well. The model was subject to all the pre-modeling and the diagnostic tests, such as the stationarity, serial correlation, stability tests, heteroscedasticity tests, and the Ardial bounds test. The model performs well against each of these tests, barring the normality test. However, the normality test is not critical to the specification of the model. This table summarizes the short-run and long-run effects of the Grid Transformation and Security Act on electricity prices. The model fits the data well, confirming a valid error correction relationship. There are two variables in this merit that should pique our interest immediately. Needless to say, one is the data center load growth. The other is the variable, post-GTSA. From the table, we can see that the post-GTSA variable is the primary driver of the increase in the residential electricity price. So, what does this variable actually refer to? This variable refers to all the base rate filings and the related riders for grid modernization, storm hardening, etc. And these are not related to the data center load growth. The other variable, data center load growth, represented by DCLG with a lag of 12 periods, has a negative coefficient. Is that surprising? Not really. It is normal for the data center load growth variable to move in opposite direction relative to the residential electricity price. This is because of the rate dilution effect, and this effect comes into play when the grid capacity is not utilized to its maximum capacity. Another variable of interest is the capital investment on transmission and distribution. Our model shows this variable to be insignificant when lagged by 12 time periods. However, this is also normal coed. Often takes 24 or sometimes even 36 months for these costs to make their way into the rate calculations. This variable, when tested for 24 lags, emerged as a significant variable in explaining price hikes. Lastly, another variable, the residual, both in level terms and when lagged by 2 time periods also, is a significant driver of the rise in residential electricity prices. This is a schematic representation of how the post-GTSA variable, which represents the lifting of the freeze on the rate increases, works itself into the rate calculations. This variable, represented by factors such as grid modernization, storm hardening, etc., represent the direct effect of the regulatory action, that is, defreeze of the rate hikes. The effect of the data center load growth, which includes the impact via the wholesale price volatility, etc., are the indirect effects. Here we break down how the rate increase in Virginia after the policy change can be attributed to data center load growth versus non-data center factors. In order to do this, we ran a simple regression where we examined the impact of the POS-GTSA variable on the data center load growth lagged by 12 time periods. The resulting coefficient, along with the coefficients of post-GTSA and data center load growth, with a lag of 12 obtained in the primary specification, gave us the necessary inputs to arrive at the total effect derived using the Sobel formula. The Sobel test confirms that the direct effect of the policy on prices is significant, while the indirect effect through data center load is negligible and slightly negative. Essentially, the residential price increase is almost entirely due to the regulatory factors driven by grid modernization, energy cost recovery, storm hardening, etc., rather than data center-related load changes. From the table, we can see that the indirect effect, i.e. due to the data center load growth, places a deflationary effect on the residential electric rates by 0.15%. The broader interpretation is that the data centers do not lead to an increase in the residential price increase in Virginia. Let us see what this means in terms of actual numbers. The inflation-adjusted residential electricity price in 2017 was $17.16 in 2026 prices. The residential electricity price in Virginia today is $17.56 kilowatt-hour. All of this increase was due to the direct effect, while the data center load growth decreased the price very marginally. That is by 0.0006 cents/kilowatt-hour. Rate dilution at play. Now, let us look at the comparator state, Alabama. The specification for Alabama is much simpler. There is no wholesale market in Alabama, and the wholesale price effect is captured through the variable, the city gate price of natural gas. The other change is that the industrial load growth captured by the electricity sales to the industrial sector plays the role the data center load growth played in Virginia. The term interaction refers to the multiplicative effect of the industrial load growth and the city gate price. At this point in time, it may be worth a few minutes highlighting the difference in the regulatory process in Virginia and Alabama. While in Virginia, the rate reviews happen once in 12 or 24 months, and sometimes even 3 years. There are two components to the regulatory review of rates in Alabama. The Energy Cost and Recovery ECR is monitored on a monthly basis, and any adjustments are made around the 3-month mark, while the base rate review happens once a year. Because the ECRS changes actually get reflected every 2 to 3 months, we lag the citygate price by 3 time periods in this model. This regression analysis for Alabama shows that past electricity prices, cooling and heating degree days, and capital expenditures significantly influence current residential prices. Other factors like the industrial load growth, interaction terms, and city gate prices are less impactful. The model explains a high proportion of price variation, indicating a strong fit and highlighting capital investment as a key driver of price changes in Alabama. This result validates the result that we get in Virginia. Let us take a step back. You remember that there was a freeze on rate prices increase in Virginia in 2015, right? You know what? Alabama in December 2025 has placed a freeze on rate increase. We did not factor that into the model here because there are not enough number of observations post the freeze that may have improved the fit of the model. As in the case of Virginia, the model here too was subjected to all the pre-modeling and the diagnostic tests. TOAtion's model failed the heteroskedasticity test, but that was addressed by using the heteroskedasticity and autocorrelation covariance factor in our estimates. Comparing Virginia and Alabama reveals that load growth alone doesn't directly drive price increases in either state. The common belief that data centers raise bills doesn't hold up under scrutiny. Instead, capital investment consistently links infrastructure spending to higher residential prices, despite different regulatory frameworks. Ultimately, policy changes in regulatory design, rather than raw demand growth, are the main forces shaping electricity prices in both states. However, one needs to keep in mind that this is a backwards-looking study, and therefore one must bear caution before extrapolating these results to the future years. The strain on the grid is a concern. At the recent PJM briefing, it was revealed that the reserve margin in the PJM ISO are at worryingly low levels, a clear sign that the grid is under stress. Are data centers alone to blame? No. There are other factors such as electrification, volatility in blockchain, onshoring of manufacturing, etc. As the grid continues to come under strain in the coming years, the rate dilution effect will dampen over time, and if the ring fencing by the sum of the states, including Virginia, are not effective, we, the residential consumers, will definitely feel the impact. Further increase in data center load without the due but not excessive regulation will put an upward pressure on the residential electricity prices, particularly if the ring fencing fails to do the job it is expected to do. That brings us to the end of this episode. Before we bid adieu, wanted to let you know that the full-length paper of this study will be made online in the next months. We will also be delving deeper into the insights and the implications of these findings with a full-fledged podcast in the next few weeks. Lastly, before I disappear, as this study keeps referring to the policy and regulatory factors, wanted to remind you to check out our episode 5 of our podcast Rack and Regulation, where Vira Shah, one of our other co-hosts, engages with the two experts Carl Rabago and Dr. Michael Ginsberg to try and make sense of the policy actions of some of the states with respect to the data centers. Until the next time, this is Steve signing off. Take care and goodbye.